Roguelikes are the best game genre. It's the genre that made me fall in love with gaming all over again, and it's also the genre that made me get into game development. So today, I want to dedicate this video to them, as a sort of love letter.
He said it! He said it!
But first, what is a roguelike anyway? To answer that, let's go back in time, all the way to 1980.
To the good old days.
Or so I've heard. I was actually born 2 decades later. That year, a little game was released. Its name? Rogue. Rogue was the granddaddy of roguelikes, as you can hopefully guess by the name of the genre. It was inspired by text-based computer games and by Dungeons and Dragons. The developers wanted to capture that sense of adventure and unpredictability, but on a computer. This was the early 80s, so they had to work with what they had. No fancy graphics, no orchestral soundtracks, just raw mechanics. And those mechanics boiled down to 2 groundbreaking ideas: procedural generation, and permadeath. That's all a game needs to be a roguelike. You start a run, navigate a dungeon or a world that's completely unknown, although always following a set of rules, and then you die and start again. And then there's roguelites, where even though you lose most progress between runs, you have some sort of meta-progression system, whether it's in the form of permanent upgrades, or keeping weapons between runs, or unlocking new things. That depends on the game. And these 2 elements mean one thing: almost endless replayability. If a roguelike is properly designed, you will be able to play it for hours, finding new builds, routes, and Easter eggs, while you try to improve in order to finally beat the game, which is usually no easy task, as these games tend to be really difficult. And it makes sense. It wouldn't really be fun if you could beat the game in your first try, as a run is typically between 20 minutes to an hour long, making the core experience really easy to understand, but difficult to master. Now that you know what roguelikes are, let's talk about why they are so good from a game design perspective, and why you should consider making one if you're a game developer, or playing one if you're a gamer who hasn't found his ideal roguelike yet. First of all, randomness. It's basically the beating heart of roguelikes, as I already said. From map layouts to loot drops, enemy spawns, and upgrades, the unpredictable nature of these games keeps every run feeling fresh. You never really know what's around the corner. Sometimes it's a treasure, and sometimes it's a boss that you're absolutely not ready for. But here's the thing, not all randomness is created equal. There's a fine line between chaos that feels exciting and chaos that feels unfair. And that's where the idea of randomness balance comes in. The best roguelikes sprinkle just enough randomness to keep things interesting, but they don't make it feel like the game is actively out to ruin your life. And there's always patterns to be discovered if you pay attention. It's also really important to balance everything and give players enough agency to mitigate the bad luck. For example, let's say that you're playing Slay the Spire, and you want to go with Ironclad's Barricade build, which, in case you haven't played the game, means you will be accumulating tons of block, and then body slam your enemies, dealing damage equal to your block. If you get lucky, you will get really good cards for this. But what if you don't get any? Well, if you play enough, you will learn how to adapt to the situation. Maybe you couldn't get any defensive cards, but instead you got really good ones for a strength build. By making many different strategies work, the developers made sure to make a game where if you lose, it's almost always your own responsibility, and not just bad RNG. Another way randomness is made fair is by incorporating the most important thing in any game: risk and reward. If you take risks, you're often rewarded with powerful tools that can completely change your run. Think about choosing to take a cursed relic in exchange for a significant upgrade, or pushing into a harder path filled with elites to get more powerful cards and artifacts. The best roguelikes design these moments carefully, balancing the risk so it feels daunting, and the reward tempting enough to make the player reconsider playing it safe. This tug of war creates tension, which is a big part of why these games are so compelling. From time to time, the gamble won't pay off, that's true, but at least you had the chance to decide whether you wanted to take the risk or not. You won't be forced to use a key to open a chest, for example. It will be your own decision to make. And so, if the reward is bad, it won't feel as unfair, but if the reward is good, it will feel even better, because it will trick your brain into thinking that it was thanks to your own choice to open the chest. Now, from time to time you can have some extremely bad run, that's true. But that's where the second positive thing about roguelikes comes in. They are short and satisfying. The number of actions you can do in a roguelike is generally small. There are combos that you can learn, and you can obviously get better over time, but the core is usually simple enough to get used to it in the first run. Whether it's shooting in the direction of your mouse, or using cards to fight, or taking turns to do actions on a grid, that one core mechanic will be simple and designed in such a way that it feels extremely satisfying, as the entire experience will revolve around it, since there's usually no story or other elements to focus on. Nowadays, I simply cannot sit in front of my computer and play for hours. I don't have the time or the energy to do that. So games where narrative is the main focus often feel more like a chore, where I have to play at least once a week to not forget what I was doing. And that simply doesn't happen with roguelikes, because to a certain extent, they value your time. They won't make you walk back and forth from point A to point B to complete a mission, only to unlock a mission where you have to walk from point B to point C instead. Roguelikes strip away the filler and keep you in the action. Every run is self-contained, meaning you can pick it up, play for 20 minutes, and still feel like you've made some progress, even if you lose. You are not slogging through hours of grinding to get to the good part, because the good part is the game. Don't get me wrong, I also love games where grinding is essential. In fact, my most played games are survivals like Ark or Project Zomboid. But I cannot just open those games and play for 20 minutes before bed, just like I cannot do that with 4X games or RPGs, which I also love. So the busier my life gets, with work, this YouTube channel, and my own game dev journey, the more I appreciate roguelikes. Another huge advantage of roguelikes is that you can turn any genre into one. Survival? Done. Shooter? Done. Poker? Done. Anything can become a roguelike, meaning there's most definitely at least one that's perfect for you. So, in case this little love letter convinced you to try roguelikes, here's a few recommendations depending on your previous favorite games. First of all, if you like action games, definitely go with Hades or Dead Cells. They are both amazing and have roguelike elements, meaning the transition between traditional games and roguelikes will be smoother if you pick one of these. If you're into farming simulators like Stardew Valley, you will definitely enjoy Cult of the Lamb. It combines amazing art with dark humor, blending roguelike dungeon crawling with town building mechanics. For fans of card games, Slay the Spire is the undisputed classic. Its deck building mechanics and strategic depth are second to none. And I'm also working on a deck builder myself, so you should definitely subscribe if you want to stay tuned. If you love top-down shooters, Enter the Gungeon is the perfect place to start. Although I prefer the more action-packed Nuclear Throne, which will definitely test your reflexes. And for fans of survival games, Don't Starve introduces roguelike elements to its exploration and crafting mechanics. Or you can play Don't Starve together if you want to enjoy this experience with friends. And last but not least, the nominated to Game of the Year and often compared to hard drugs, Balatro, which will definitely keep you hooked for hours. If you have any roguelike recommendations, leave them in the comment section. And that's all for now. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, a follow, and check this video next. See ya!